It's almost Halloween, so let's talk about scary games. And yes, I completely refuse to call it horror because, as you can see with my accent, I need to avoid anything with double R's. Let's just say fear driven. Anyways, many want to make this kind of game, but few really understand the psychology behind fear. Me neither, because when I first started, it was just about the obvious stuff, like dark hallways, creepy music, and maybe a monster that jumps at you if you breathe wrong. And the result wasn't scary, it was just loud, predictable, and I remember that during the big moment, one of the testers even yawned. And that's when I tried to learn. So fear doesn't come from what you show, it comes from what you control. Fear in games is like a system, not an effect. It's about how much the player knows, how much they think they know, and when you decide to pull the rug out. That's what I want to talk about. How I would start designing a fear-driven game, step by step. So, when you strip the visuals away, fear in games is about information control. You can have a clown in daylight if it's terrifying because the player knows that that smile means danger. Or you can have a monster that is laughable if the player knows that it's just on a preset timer. Most devs fail with this because they focus on content. What it looks like, what it sounds, but it actually comes from context. The player's state of awareness, the degree to which they feel responsible for what is happening. And that's the trick. Fear is participation. If players do not feel involved in their own downfall, they'll never feel the tension. For me, I still remember the first time a game got me, and it was on the glorious Silent Hill 2 on the PlayStation 2, best console. I was walking through one of those hospital corridors, and at the far end, there was a nurse. She wasn't running towards me, just twitching slowly under the light. I don't recall the sounds, there wasn't a jump scare, it was nothing dramatic, but I froze. I literally couldn't move, hands cold. It wasn't the monster, it was the space around it, all the silence, the way the light framed it, and the delay before it even noticed me. And that's when I realized that the fear is not about violence or shock. It's about anticipation, about your brain filling the silence faster than the game can. And that moment defined how I see fear in design ever since. So when I start, I don't ask, what's the monster? I ask, what kind of discomfort do I want players to feel? Dread? Anxiety? Paranoia? But pick one, because if you try to do all of them, you just end up with a chaotic mood board instead of a proper theme. AAA games mix every kind of fear like if it's a buffet. Slow dread, chase panic, loud jumps, quiet hallways, blah blah blah. Indies cannot afford that, which is good. We can specialize. If you want panic, design chaos. If you want dread, design waiting. One of the first fear prototypes tried to do both. We had exploration and chases and stealth, everything in just one loop. The players didn't know whether to go slowly or to sprint, so they ended up Alt F4. So yeah, start with emotion first. The mechanics are just translator. Don't think stealth horror. Think, I want players to feel watched. Because that single intent will define everything. The lighting, the sound design, the pacing, and even the UI. It's what makes the difference between a yawn and players begging to make a stop. Once you know the emotion, you build a rule set that expresses it. I tend to call it the language of fear. It has just 4 verbs: see, hear, move, and lose. What the player sees defines safety. What they hear defines threat. How they move shows confidence. And what they lose, like light, ammo, or even map, data. That's the cost of failure. You can start by removing power. Not too much. Nobody likes to feel pure helplessness. Just give players the illusion of control and slowly take it away. A flashlight that flickers, a map that updates late, or a radio that cuts off mid-sentence. Think of your threat like a predator. You need to define the senses, the triggers, the logic, and let players learn the rules, grow confident, and then break those rules. That's dread. Your goal is to make players feel when they're breaking a rule before they even realize it. When they catch themselves holding their breath or looking all over the place. And that's when you got it. When you have a rough system, prototype it quickly. Don't chase polish, chase the feeling. Make a grey box, one mechanic, no art, and test how long it takes for the first scare. The first, that was close. The first nervous laugh. If the prototype is not making people talk to themselves, is just not working yet. Playtest without explanation. Watch what those players want to assume. Their wrong guesses will tell you how to design the next iteration. I remember that once I tracked time to the first detection, and the players lasted like 22 seconds as an average before getting caught. Far too short, so slowed down the patrols, expanded the shadows, and suddenly those 22 seconds became a full minute. No new features, no new mechanics, just timing. And 90% of the fear design is rhythm, silence, contrast, and distance. Because the fear lives in the pause between those two sounds, not in the sound itself. When the mechanics start to work, give fear a reason to exist. Because without meaning, fear is just noise. The best fear-driven games tie emotion to a theme: guilt, decay, loss, control. Look at many games like Amnesia, Signalis, or Darkwood. They stay with you because they make you complicit. You just don't watch fear happen, you cause it. And theme also guides the rhythm. You can't just keep players terrified non-stop. They're just tone out. Kinda like cooking. It's the contrast that gives flavor. Imagine you are taking a 5-course meal where every single item is sweet. It'll get very boring very quickly. You need those quiet spaces, the reflection points, and the safety that feels wrong. And then comes restraint. Many devs think that fear scales with content, like more monsters, more blood, more rooms. The opposite is what is true, because fear scales with clarity. The less moving parts, the more the player notices what is left. Cut until every mechanic matters. You need to cut every light, every sound, and every pause until they all earn their place. In short, making a scary game is not about jump scares or pretty graphics. It's about the discipline, and it's about knowing exactly when to let the player think that they understand something and when to betray that trust. So, if I were to start a fear-driven game tomorrow, I'd go in this order. Emotion first and rules second. Prototype fast and cut faster. And then, only then, worry about the story and visuals. Remember that fear lives in limitation, not spectacle. If you can make somebody feel unsafe in a brightly lit room, you're pretty much there. And if you want to share your own experiments, like your prototypes, your tension loops, or your cursed flashlight, hang out with us in the GDE Discords. It's not a pitch space, it's a lab. We try to share lessons, we dissect what went wrong, and occasionally we remind each other that no, adding a bigger monster will not fix your pacing issues. And that's it. Start small, build tension, And remember, fear is not what you show, it's what you take away. See you next time.